Meet Ian Hopp, the sharp-faced avatar of peak misfortune in a society that absolutely hates him. He's trapped in a hell-tier RPG where a single careless breath triggers an instant game over. It started with a pirated download of Aquilonia, a brutal fantasy realm defined by pure, unadulterated savagery. The world reeks of treachery, and Ian's stuck in the custom body he built before the portal swallowed him. He's a glitchy mage in a game that demands strict specialization just to survive its soul-crushing difficulty. While others min-maxed for survival, this genius dumped his precious stat points into stamina instead. If he wanted a blade, he bought a blade. His logic was as bafflingly simple as it was dangerous. Being a hardcore solo player, Ian felt forced to become a jack-of-all-trades, spreading his stats dangerously thin. This chaotic build backfired, turning Ian's character into a glitched, utterly broken mess of a hero. Seeing his failed experiment, he hit delete, but the moment he clicked, the universe had other plans. His monitor strobed with eerie data, and then total darkness. Ian's reality blinked out of existence instantly. He awoke in a rotting swamp immediately cornered by a literal horde of nightmare fuel and monsters. The truth hit him, he was physically inside the game, currently trapped in the most lethal training area. How did I end up in this hellhole? Ian spiraled his mind, racing to survive this digital kidnapping. Existential dread had to wait though. In this realm, hesitation is a death sentence paid in blood. 6 agonizing months in that godforsaken mire forged Ian into a survivor who finally understood the stakes. Fast forward 1 year into his isekai nightmare, and Ian's finally taking on high-stakes mercenary quests. His mission: exterminate a kobold nest. The reward: an open tab at the local tavern, a solid deal. After surviving a year of literal hell, slaughtering minor kobolds felt like a relaxing day at the office. It was a cakewalk until those low-life thugs torched the forest, trying to roast the kobolds and Ian alive. That blaze is massive, the one-eyed bandit sneered. Nothing survives a furnace like that, especially not a mage. Cap, that mage is no rookie, a bald goon stammered, his confidence evaporating with the forest's moisture. Shut it, you cowards, the leader barked. Look at those flames, no one walks away from that inferno. His mana is bone dry by now, he boasted, right before a primal dangerous chill crawled up his spine. Whipping around, he signaled his men in panic. He's here. Through the smoke, a terrifying silhouette emerged. Ian stepped calmly through the fire, grumbling about the weight of his loot, as if he weren't burning. Clutched in his hand was a kobold's severed head, its lifeless eyes staring back in a final frozen gaze. Exiting the tree line, Ian found his path obstructed by a group of arrogant thugs looking for trouble. Drop the loot and walk away, kid, the leader commanded. Don't make me do something you'll regret. Hand over the head, and I'll spare you, he threatened, causing Ian to palm his face in annoyance. A sharp smirk played on Ian's lips. If you insist. He dropped the trophy and instantly ignited his mana. The leader's jaw hit the floor. This kid just cast magic without a single word. When did he chant? Recovering quickly, he screamed at the foliage. Fire. A hidden sniper rose, leveling a crossbow at Ian. The bolt whistled through the air, but Ian was already 10 steps ahead, weaving magic mid-flight. With a flick, Ian redirected the bolt straight into the bald goon's leg, leaving the thugs utterly speechless. Confused and terrified, the men hesitated until their leader roared, "Don't just stand there, kill him now." They lunged forward in a pincer attack, but Ian stood his ground, radiating an aura of absolute composure. Taking a light step back, he gathered concentrated energy and slammed his palms together with a thunderous clap. Frost erupted instantly, unleashing a blinding wave of sub-zero energy that turned the forest into a frozen tomb. The icy shockwave expanded rapidly, catching the one-eyed bandit dead center in its devastating bone-chilling path. He became a human statue in seconds, tipping over and shattering into 1,000 jagged shards of ice. One bandit dead, and the leader's confidence was crumbling. The power display left him paralyzed with pure terror. This didn't make sense. The rumor said Ian was a fire mage. Ice magic wasn't even in the script. He's a fire user, right? The leader panicked, realizing the earlier blaze was just collateral from an explosion. Terror finally took root as he stared at the calm mage standing amidst the wreckage of his squad. Magic wasn't the answer. After finishing the first one, Ian locked eyes with their leader. 2 more rats in the bushes. Ian didn't wait, conjuring a swarm of blazing fireballs. He split the flames, unleashing a relentless barrage that scorched the entire forest perimeter. Why wait for answers? Just burn it all. This chaotic bombardment worked like a charm. The hidden ambushers were instantly cooked, screaming for mercy against his overwhelming, terrifying firepower. Ian didn't blink, maintaining the heat until only the leader and one subordinate remained. Approaching the lone survivor, Ian casually placed a glowing hand on the man's head. That fiery touch ended him instantly. The leader watched, paralyzed by sheer cold terror. Fire and ice together. Impossible, he stammered, his entire body shaking in total disbelief. Just the perks of a trash-tier character, Ian quipped, his voice chillingly calm. He grabbed a nearby blade and sent the leader to join his fallen crew. After collecting the kobold trophy, Ian headed back. The tavern owner was absolutely stunned. "You cleared the whole camp. Amazing, I never expected you to actually survive that quest." Before the man could finish, Ian slammed a heavy captured sword onto the wooden table. The owner broke into a cold sweat. He knew exactly whose legendary steel that was. That sword. You fought the knights, Ian shrugged. They were dirty, so I erased them. Anyone else looking for trouble? Ian's voice was bone-chilling. He wasn't looking for friends. He needed to know if those knights had any connections left to hunt down. Eliminating every potential threat now would save him a massive headache later on. The old man sighed. Don't bother. Those losers weren't worth anyone's time anyway. A nearby drunk agreed. Exactly, they were just low-life bandits pretending to wear armor. Lucky you got them first, kid. I was just about to handle it myself. Ian let out a tired sigh. It seemed he was just overthinking things again. Suddenly, a familiar blue system window flickered to life right in front of him. Side quest, clear Kobold camp. Objective, defeat leader. Status. All targets successfully eliminated. Mission complete. But Ian just stared at the notification with a look of pure boredom. Typical, he thought. The rewards are just as mid as the enemies I killed. He sheathed the blade and faced the owner. You haven't forgotten our deal, right? Rest easy, hero. Free room and board for life, just like I promised you. Then get some hot water ready, Ian said, heading upstairs to finally relax. In the bath, Ian's instincts flared. He spun blade aimed directly at the intruder. It was just an in-worker. He stopped his strike just inches from her face. I just brought water, she gasped, trembling from the near-death experience. Sorry, thought you were an assassin, Ian muttered, sheathing his sword as she offered help. As she poured, her eyes were shamelessly glued to Ian's perfectly sculpted, shredded physique. Don't get any ideas, Ian deadpanned. The girl jumped frantically, denying she was looking. Ian tuned her out, lost in thought. These base stats were his only lifeline. Without them, he'd be dead. But this version of Ian Hop was a total glitch. Since his arrival, the world map had expanded, revealing lands that shouldn't even exist. The monsters were getting deadlier, and mysterious new villages were appearing everywhere. He was overpowered for now, but these country bumpkins weren't his real endgame. Staying still meant death. He had to keep grinding no matter how small the gains. There might be hidden loot at that camp, he realized. I should have checked earlier. By morning, Ian had already hired some local thugs to scavenge the ruins. We can really keep this, they cheered. Yeah, Lord, Ian said. Everything valuable is ours. Ian's mind drifted. Were those fools actually sticking to the plan? He stood silently over the Kobold King's rotting remains. Retrieving that hidden gem was his top priority. With a cold glint in his eyes, he unsheathed his blade. He dug the tip in to pry the jewel loose. The old barkeep watched his brow furrowing. Is that thing cursed? Tainted mana and something far worse, Ian muttered. The old man's eyes widened. You mean this beast dabbled in the dark arts? Not quite. Some maniac surgically implanted this core just to turn the monster into a living weapon. And if that jewel seduces your mind, Ian scoffed. If it takes hold, you're nothing but a hollow puppet, a new plaything for that bastard. Cut to the collection crew. Yo, Johnson, you cleared out this section yet? Whoa. Check out that sparkle. Where'd you score a rock like that? The black-haired scout asked, eyeing the jewel in Johnson's palm. Found it just now, Johnson chirped, his voice dripping with odd excitement. I'm taking this home to my mother. But as he spoke, his gaze drifted toward his comrade with a chilling, vacant stare. Meanwhile, Ian was busy cataloging his loot. Not a bad haul from the chieftain's quarters. This stash was definitely worth the trouble. We've got mana stones, a crimson eye pendant, +1 to strength, and stamina, +3, spirit, and a decent pile of silver coins. But here's the real prize, he said, lifting the crimson stone. High-grade mana essence, though it is completely corrupted. A little purification and this power is all mine. But this is not the right place for such a delicate ritual. He slipped it into his hidden dimensional pouch. It is a tight fit, sure, but the convenience is unbeatable. Somehow, I ended up in this world with my maxed out Ian Thorpe stats and skills. Yet things felt different. The quests, the items, the entire storyline, it has all been rewritten. So why did I get to keep my high-level powers? Is this a mercy buff so I do not get obliterated instantly? Whoever dragged me here must have left me a fighting chance. I am thankful, but honestly, a little more generosity would not have hurt. Suddenly, the tavern owner shouted, Hey Knight, can I actually keep this? The old barkeep, who had been scavenging for a while, suddenly hoisted a heavy axe. Hey Sir Knight, am I really allowed to take this? It is yours for a price, Ian smirked. We will settle the bill later. For now, move it to the entrance. Time to see if these bottom feeders followed my orders properly. Ian stepped out and rounded up the remaining henchmen. His eyes gleamed at the sight of their overflowing sacks. Perfect. Everyone has been working hard. But these rats are born thieves. Ian was not taking any chances. It was time for a magical shakedown. Manually searching is a drag, he muttered. Let us do this the easy way. He activated his mana scan skill. Instantly, his world bled into shades of neon blue. The lackeys shifted uncomfortably, their guilt starting to sweat through. Luckily, nobody was dumb enough to hide high-tier artifacts. The first two guys cleared inspection without a hitch. Ian kept walking, scanning the line. Nothing. Nothing. Wait. He froze. A vibrant, pulsating glow flickered from inside the blonde guy's hip pouch, a mana-infused item, and definitely not his. Ian facepalmed. He had hoped for the best, but some moron actually had the audacity to steal from him. How can you be this brain-dead? Ian hissed. The blonde guy nearly jumped out of his skin. Huh, something wrong, boss. In a flash, Ian's blade was pressed against the man's throat. Empty your bag, now. Cold sweat drenched the man's face. I do not know what you are talking about, sir, he stammered, but his excuses died in his throat. His voice warped into a guttural growl, and his eyes burned a demonic crimson. A terrifying aura erupted from his body. The other hirelings scrambled back in horror. What the hell is wrong with Johnson? But Johnson was already gone. His limbs snapped and twisted into impossible bone-crunching positions. Ian let out a weary sigh and tightened his grip. Possessed by the curse already. Figures. I guess we were never destined to be friends after all. He swung his blade in a lethal arc, aiming to end it quickly. But the blade never hit home. A hand shot up, halting the steel with terrifying precision. Johnson caught the edge between two fingers, a smug, chilling grin plastered on his face. You really should not go for the neck. His voice was a mocking sneer. Ian just looked at him, too exhausted to be genuinely surprised. Oh, is that so? I expected a mindless curse, but it looks like there is a bigger fish on the hook. Suddenly, the creature inside Johnson began to scream at Ian, with unbridled rage. His face contorted in a mask of pure, unadulterated venom as he glared at the knight with hatred. A voice that sounded like grinding stones hissed through his lips. You treacherous piece of trash. You dared to desecrate the site where I planted my seed. You're the thief who pilfered it, aren't you? Ian's gears began to turn. Was he talking about that gemstone, stashing it in the subspace must-have? Severed the connection. That explains his hostility. If I hadn't intervened in this mess, these goblins would have reduced the village to ash. To him, I'm just a wild card he didn't predict. Piecing it together, Ian smirked, deciding to poke the bear. You're in quite the rush, aren't you? I'll be sure to put your mana to work, Warlock. That mockery sent the possessed Johnson into a blinding fury. You insolent brat, he roared, as a monstrous aura surged through him, his power skyrocketing instantly. His hand mutated into a demonic claw, and with one effortless crush, Ian's blade shattered like glass. Ian leaped back to reset, throwing a classic insult at the monster standing before him. Seriously, I just found this sword, but before he could complain, Johnson closed the gap instantly. As a massive fist swung, Ian parried the demonic strike, using the jagged remains of his blade. But the steel barely deflected him. Those mutated limbs were way too reinforced to actually sever. They weren't human anymore. Johnson was purely a melee beast, now unleashing a barrage of lightning-fast strikes. The relentless assault forced Ian into a desperate retreat, fueling Mad Dog Johnson's sadistic joy. Pinned you down, didn't I? Time for a lesson in respect. His gloating lasted exactly 3 seconds. Ian launched a point-blank fireball straight into his face. The warlock's eyes nearly popped out in horror. At this range, evasion was impossible. An explosion rocked the area, but Ian wasn't finished yet. He'd already prepped more fireballs just in case. This guy was getting a full-course meal of flames. Unsurprisingly, one blast didn't do the job. The warlock struggled to sit up, coughing through the smoke. He snarled, "Just what the hell are you?" But Ian was done playing 20 questions. Too much yapping, Ian roared, unleashing a volley of fireballs capped off by one massive final blast. The barrage left Johnson a charred husk, yet he clung to life just to spit out some threats. So you're one of Crimson's dogs. Fine, we'll meet again. Remember this face, I'm the one who's going to dismantle your very soul. Before he could finish his villain monologue, Ian decapitated him. This guy was tanky as hell. Even as his head rolled across the dirt, he managed one final eerie whisper. Necromancer. Ian just looked down at the corpse. No point introducing yourself after you've already lost, buddy. He plunged his hand into Johnson's chest, ripping out a familiar gemstone. It was a perfect match. This one's even smaller than the boss's. Just as I suspected, these things are everywhere. He stood up, scanning the remaining mercenaries. All right, which one of you is next? Days later, Ian wrapped up a mission and headed back way ahead of schedule. The shopkeeper blinked. Back already, I still can't wrap my head around you being a mage. Ian grunted. Watch it, old-timer. Relax, you don't look like those creepy stuck-up sorcerers at all. Mages have a trash reputation, so I get the secrecy. But enough with the small talk. You want me to braise that beard for you, Ian? Threatened a flickering flame dancing in his hand. The old man scrambled back. Okay, chill, I was just legitimately worried about you, kid. That warlock won't let this slide. Ian's response was ice cold. Just worry about staying alive yourself. Ian had a plan. He'd settle that score eventually. For now, he had bigger things to handle. He'd cleared every tavern board and side quest, but the XP gains were becoming absolutely pathetic. Time to find a new grinding spot. But while he planned, mysterious figures were closing in. You were spot on, sir. The one who nuked the kobolds is right here. It didn't take long for the squad to track Ian down to his local tavern. Morning. Word says there's a guy here who soloed a whole kobold army. Is that you? A freckle-faced youth asked, locking eyes with our main character. So you're the legendary one, the freckled youth challenged, his sharp gaze drilling right through Ian. Witnessing the duo, Ian could only unleash a silent string of curses. Well crap, he muttered internally. The warrior looming behind the freckled youth wasn't some random NPC. He was a walking plot twister. Meet me Valoran, the infamous blood-soaked avenger. Once he served as a proud knight of Azaline. Consumed by sheer malice, he eventually emerged as Aquilonia's Chapter 1 mid-boss. The why remained a mystery. Rumors claimed he sieged the palace solo just to assassinate King Agaland, even on his literal deathbed. Every single strike landed as a critical hit. For a starting boss, he was basically a cheat code. Now this absolute unit was hunting for Ian. Snapping back to reality, the freckled guy kept talking. Ian simply pointed toward the wall, where the Kobold King's severed head hung like a grim trophy. The pair entered the tavern, drawing closer to inspect the kill. Incredible. Even elite border mercenaries. Dread facing these beasts, yet you cleared them like it was nothing, the freckled youth marveled. Overflowing with respect, he quickly regained his composure to offer a proper, formal introduction. Sorry for the interrogation, but we had to verify you were the legend we've been seeking. Allow me, a devotee of Lucola Tyrann's apostle, Southern Border Guardian, and Angeline's prized blade, the great knight Valoran. Ian took this moment to scan the warrior with a sharp eye. He's unrecognizable. Looks like the darkness hasn't eaten his soul yet, definitely a point in my favor. Encountering him mid-berserk would have meant a one-way trip to the graveyard. Ian pivoted back to the kid. I'm Philip, his loyal subordinate. I offer greetings on behalf of my master, the youth announced. Nice to meet you, Ian sighed tiredly. I'm just Ian Hop, exactly as I look. A run-of-the-mill mercenary. What brings big shots like you all the way out here for me? Philip cut to the chase. Spot anything. Unnatural. Back at that kobold settlement, Ian played dumb. Unnatural, like dark arts or some twisted heretical cult. Philip nodded. Ian was internally stunned. He didn't expect these two to be onto the dark mage already. Seeing a pre-corrupted Valoran was wild enough, but now they were hunting the same sorcerer. Time for a little test. Maybe. But look, I'm a merc. Righteousness doesn't pay the bills. No deal, no service. My loyalty usually goes to the highest bidder, Ian challenged. If the knight wants intel, let's see an offer. He locked eyes with the silent warrior. Such blatant disrespect nearly made Philip explode with rage at this lowly mercenary's nerve. Maeve's hand shot up, silencing him. He's right. Forgive our lack of manners, she spoke calmly. She discarded her helm, revealing a stunning woman with fiery crimson hair. Pulling up a chair, she explained. I'm socially distant with strangers, so Philip handles the talking. I meant no disrespect. Across the table, Ian stood paralyzed. The sheer beauty of the legendary knight had him floored. Wait, Maeve is a woman. In his past life, he'd never actually heard her speak. His only memories were of her ragged breath and haunting whispers. Maeve cut through his thoughts. Shall we get to business? Your intel won't come cheap. Philip instantly caught the vibe. He produced a heavy coin purse, sliding it to Maeve. She plucked a single gold piece out. She set it before Ian. Seeing that glinting gold, Ian's face lit up like a Christmas tree. High-tier kingdom currency. I hope this demonstrates the gravity of our situation, Maeve stated solemnly. With the gold secured, Ian started spilling. The kobolds aren't natural. Someone's been breeding them intentionally. Their chief is fueled by corrupted mana. Someone's buffing them and they're evolving way too fast. I found a corrupted mana shard embedded in the leader's chest. Pure dark mage tech. He slapped the crimson gem down. He relayed the villain's warning. The mage claimed stealing this ruined his master plan. He's coming for my head. Hearing this, Maeve's composure cracked as a cold sweat beaded on her brow. This is a nightmare. You were right, the seeds of darkness are taking root in our kingdom. We need to ID him. Tracking him is the only way. There's 10 gold in here. I'm buying that gem. She flicked the entire coin purse toward Ian with a heavy thud. Ian snatched the gold, feeling its weight. With a satisfied grin, he chirped, Deal, it's yours. Then Maeve dropped another proposal. One more thing, she began. Escort me to the palace as my witness. Suddenly, a blue system window flickered to life. Side quest: protect Maeve Lauren and slay the dark mage. Reward 1 skill point. This random quest was a jackpot. Ian was hyped. Meeting these two was a massive W. A free skill point. No way he's letting this go. With a cunning look, Ian flashed a predatory smirk. I'm a merc. If you want my blade, pay up first. Ian's insane greed made Philip snap. Seriously, you already cleaned us out of gold. What's left to take? Philip yelled. Ian just shrugged. Pipe down. Besides, focus on the mission. Hire me and I'll track him down. Maeve's eyes widened. You know his hiding spot. Not yet, but finding targets is my specialty. Ian lied through his teeth. Total bluff. Still, he had a solid gut feeling about the dark mage's location. He added, also, he hates me. Hiring his prime target costs a premium. Maeve paused, considering the price. She finally nodded. Fine, Ian. You're hired. I'll bet my reputation on this deal. Deal sealed. Without wasting a second, Ian started tracking that trash dark mage into the wild. But the direction Ian was heading, it looked like a total nightmare zone. Maeve frowned, looking around. Hey Ian, are you positive he's hiding in a dump like this? Ian didn't look back. Yeah, it's the graveyard forest. People also call it the forest of no return. Ancient fairies grew those woods over a massive burial ground. It started as a soldier's cemetery, but soon everyone began burying their dead there. Now the mist traps everyone inside forever. Hearing this creepy lore, Maeve looked skeptical. It's literally in the kingdom's center. Would he really hide there? Ian smirked. He's planting seeds of chaos. He needs a quiet place to let them grow. He wants to avoid attention while he plots. This cursed forest. Being in the center makes it the ultimate hiding spot. Nobody would ever suspect it. Checking the darkening sky, Ian suggested I'll fill you in as we move. But first we camp. Maeve nodded. Agreed. It's late. Philip chimed in. Let's head deeper. There's a stream where travelers usually set up camp. Ian cut off the amateur. Wolves are out there. I'm not losing sleep over your mistakes. Philip jumped. My bad, I'll just go grab some firewood then. He bolted into the trees. Ian just sighed, shaking his head. Unbelievable. That rookie is a monster magnet. Ian muttered, oblivious to the massive wolf pack stalking them. A terrifying elite-level alpha led the pack, hungry for blood. Meanwhile, the group started cooking. Watching Maeve, Ian noticed something strange. Her eyes didn't look like those of a killer. Where was the bloodthirsty villain who supposedly slaughtered the king and painted the palace red? Maybe she had her reasons. Ian shrugged and pulled a lunchbox from his inventory. Philip's eyes lit up. Finally, we're using the spatial bag for snacks. That lunch was a parting gift from a cute inmate before they left town. Sir Ian, wait, I packed some meat and cheese for your journey. Safe travels, she chirped. Recalling this made Philip absolutely seethe with jealousy. Ian smirked. Just want plain rice, Philip gasped. Wait, you're actually sharing. Only if you shut up. Ian began unsealing the delicious meal. Suddenly, Ian froze. His expression went cold. Quiet. The air instantly turned heavy. Maeve sensed it too. Uninvited guests are here. She snapped her helmet shut. Then blood-chilling howls surrounded them. Philip turned ghost white. Wolves, we're dead. How did they get so close? Philip's question was answered instantly as the dark tree line ahead began to shift. Hundreds of glowing eyes ignited in the shadows. Philip's voice cracked in terror. What are those wolves? All of them. What's the plan? He panicked. Ian just clicked his tongue in annoyance. Great, there goes our dinner break. Suddenly beasts lunged from the brush, encircling the group. As the moonlight hit their mangy fur, Maeve scanned the pack with a sharp eye. Standard size. Think that dark mage is pulling the strings here. Who cares? We'll ask their corpses, Ian muttered coldly. Maeve nodded. Philip, fall back and protect the mounts. She unsheathed her blade, stepping into the fray. But seeing Ian readying for combat, she paused. Ian, you too. Stay with the horses, she commanded. But Ian wasn't about to play babysitter. Forget that you guard them, Ian snapped. Maeve blinked, completely floored by his audacity. How do you expect to hunt them in that heavy plate armor? Ian pointed out. Maeve started to protest, but a frantic scream cut her off. Philip was already getting swarmed. Help, master. They're coming from the back too. Seeing the chaos, Ian gave Maeve a sideways glance. Go. Only I can handle this speed. You've got nothing to lose. Philip shrieked again, desperate. Gritting her teeth, Maeve pivoted to bail him out. Don't you dare die, she yelled over her shoulder. Ian just scoffed under his breath. Worry about yourself, lady. He turned back to the sea of fur and fangs. Man, there's a lot. Suddenly, a wolf lunged, jaws snapping for his throat. But after a year of non-stop carnage, Ian sidestepped the attack with effortless grace. Still, the beast's persistence was starting to annoy him. One fire spell would end this, but he couldn't reveal his hand yet. Maeve was still a wild card. He retreated a step, whispering, if I'm keeping a low profile, this is the way to go. Chanting softly, he activated a low-tier dark spell, Windblade. This specific technique draws in the atmosphere to boost the user's agility. Even better, if the caster focuses, that wind becomes a razor-sharp edge. Two wolves charged simultaneously, sensing an easy kill. Ian swung his gale-infused blade in a wide arc. Normally, a clean decapitation would be impossible, but the wind-enhanced steel tore through flesh like paper. Suddenly, another predator leaped from his blind spot. Jaws clamped down on him before he could pivot. But as the wolf tried to crush him, it realized its teeth couldn't even graze his skin. Ian had anticipated this. He'd already deployed a low-level windshield. With a flick of his wrist, he broke free of the beast's grip, throwing a mocking grin at the mangy mutt. Stings, right. Pretty sure you just chipped a tooth. Without missing a beat, Ian silenced the wolf forever. With a cold gaze, he glanced back to check the others. Surprisingly, Maeve and Philip were holding their own quite well. The duo was a whirlwind of steel. Ian moved to assist, impressed by their skill. They're tougher than they look, he noted. Even that clumsy Philip was actually being useful. But then a realization hit him. This was taking way too long. Crap. Their leader is stalling us, he hissed. He needed the Alpha's head now. Ian instantly triggered his detection magic. Activating clairvoyance, the world transformed. Glowing mana streams illuminated the forest, tracing a path. Straight to the pack leader lurking in the shadows. Caught you, you little rat. Ian smirked. He spun around, shouting toward the female knight. Hey Lauren, hold the line, I'm taking the boss's head. Before she could respond, Ian vanished into the woods. Lauren stood there, blinking in pure shock. Wait, what? Get your butt back here. She screamed after him, but Ian was already airborne, literally stepping on thin air. He soared right over the snarling pack. Lauren watched her jaw nearly hitting the forest floor. Is he walking on air? She stammered, but there was no time for questions. Philip's panicked scream echoed again. Master, I'm toast. Help Kid was definitely in deep trouble. With wolf fangs inches from his throat, Ian realized it was time to move fast. He bolted, drawing the pack leader into a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Once clear, Ian pivoted with a smirk. Still relying on those basic animal instincts, huh? The Alpha locked eyes with him, its gaze dripping with pure, unadulterated, murderous intent. It huffed with primal excitement, summoning a few low-level lackeys to serve as meat shields. Seeing the backup, Ian groaned. Seriously, this fleabag actually brought the whole squad. Suddenly, a holographic window flickered to life. Side quest, defeat the cursed Andolph. The notification sent a surge of adrenaline through Ian. A hidden quest, now we're talking. Nice to meet you, Mutt. Prepare to find out what it feels like to be prey. He unsheathed his blade, ready for a bloodbath. This elite beast wasn't just some mindless mob. It snarled, sensing the insult, and barked a command for its minions to tear Ian apart. Ian didn't flinch, unleashing Gale of a Million Swords to shred the pack into bloody ribbons. You look even uglier in person, Andolph, Ian taunted, pushing the monster's buttons. The beast gnashed its teeth in fury. Ian just smirked. What's scared, now that your backup's gone? Enraged, the werewolf lunged, condensing a massive amount of mana into its left claw. It swung violently, sending sharp waves of magical energy slicing through the air toward him. Ian countered with a quick windshield, but the low-level spell immediately began to crack. Realizing it wouldn't hold, he pivoted. Fine, let's see how you handle something a bit colder. He instantly shifted to an azure spell, summoning a massive ice shield to intercept the blow. The crystalline barrier held firm, completely neutralizing the Alpha's devastating mana blades. Ian peered over his defense with a mocking grin, before the shield began to glow intensely. A barrage of lethal ice shards erupted from the barrier, shredding through the werewolf's thick hide. Crimson sprayed as the monster desperately tried to cover its vitals from the freezing onslaught. When the storm finally subsided, the pack leader stood there, battered and drenched in blood. Had enough, or are you down for round two? Ian laughed, sparking pure rage in Andolph's eyes. With a thunderous stomp, the beast launched itself forward like a furry, blood-soaked cannonball. Mana surged in its palms for a final strike, but it only managed to claw at shadows. Ian had already vanished, reappearing behind the beast with his blade poised for a lethal strike. He slashed deep, eliciting an agonizing howl that echoed throughout the dark, damp forest. Even so, Ian was stunned his wind god sword hadn't managed to sever the limb entirely. Seeing his blade snagged, the monster ignored the pain, preparing a counterattack at point-blank range. Ian flooded his weapon with wind energy, throwing every ounce of strength into one final shove. The blade tore through bone, and Andolph's right arm flew off in a shower of gore. Not letting up, Ian immediately channeled a vacuum blast, his blade humming with destructive power. He swung at the beast's remaining arm, triggering a violent explosion upon the moment of impact. The wolf's left arm vanished in the blast. Yet the stubborn king refused to go down. With one last desperate surge of mana, the armless beast lunged for a suicidal headbutt. Ian barely raised his ice shield in time, the force of the impact rattling his bones. Using the momentum, the werewolf leaped over him, attempting a final pathetic escape into the brush. "Oh no you don't," Ian shouted, his shield glowing as he aimed directly into the air. He unleashed a vertical storm of ice bullets, catching the beast while it was still airborne. Without arms to defend itself, the monster was completely defenseless against the frozen barrage. It crashed into the dirt, riddled with holes, but still clawed feebly at the ground. Ian didn't give it a second chance, casting Ice Prison to freeze the beast solid instantly. He exhaled, leaning on his sword. "Man, for a second there I thought you'd actually bolt. For real, just drop dead already, you filthy mutt. Why are you so hell-bent on draining my mana and patience?" Mana swirled in his palm before he unleashed a searing beam of energy directly at the beast. The impact sent the wolf spiraling back, crashing through the frozen wall into 1,000 shards. Breaking free from that icy tomb was a miracle. The creature saw its chance and prepared to bolt. It scrambled to flee, but Ian's icy voice cut through the air. "Where do you think you're going?" "Looking for backup, not on my watch." With a blurred motion, Ian plummeted from the sky like a predator. His hand glowed with a mysterious, volatile spell, its true name hidden in the shadows of his craft. He hammered the magical blast downward, engulfing the wolf. Under the weight of that crushing power, the pack leader collapsed, its jaw slack and breathing shallow. To finish the job, Ian summoned a vacuum burst. He buried the attack deep into its vitals. A point-blank strike like that was nothing short of torture. The shockwave ripped through its body, exploding out the other side. The massive wolf shuddered violently, coughing up pools of crimson before hitting the dirt like a lead weight. Ian stood there, gasping for air. Damn, that has to be the end of it. Finally, this nightmare is over. A heavy sigh escaped him as he surveyed the field of fallen monsters. But the silence didn't last. The leader's broken body twitched, making Ian's heart skip a beat. No way. It's still kicking. Great, my mana's completely tapped out. Just as he considered a tactical retreat, the werewolf's snout began to warp and shrink, slowly melting back into a human face. The man was regaining his senses. He looked up at Ian, his gaze dripping with profound relief. Thank you, he wheezed out. Ian didn't miss a beat. Surprise clouded his face, but his mercenary instincts kicked in instantly. If you're really that grateful, pay up with intel or gear. Empty words don't fill my pockets. The dying man struggled to draw breath, forcing out a few ragged syllables. The deer. The words were total gibberish, leaving Ian completely baffled. A deer? What are you yapping about? Which deer? Ian pressed for answers. But it was too late. The man's light faded into permanent silence. Seeing him kick the bucket, Ian cursed. Damn it, were you just bragging about your last meal? Was that your way of flexing you had venison? Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Lauren and Philip. They'd finished mopping up the smaller wolves and were anxiously scanning the horizon for Ian's return. The crunch of footsteps broke the silence. Lauren spun around, calling out, Ian, is that you? Still in one piece, unfortunately, Ian replied, casually swinging the severed head of the werewolf. Philip took one look at the grisly trophy and hit the ground trembling. Lord, what is that horror? It's a werewolf, Ian explained coolly. This was the puppet master behind the entire ambush. Lauren stood frozen in shock. He actually took down a beast like that entirely on his own. Maybe Ian really is the key to finding the warlock. Still facing a werewolf solo was a suicidal gamble. She finally snapped. Why did you play hero? You could have been slaughtered. Did our promise mean nothing to you? Ian turned his expression unreadable. It would have escaped if I'd sat around waiting for you guys. Are you sure? Or is that just your ego talking? Lauren shot back. Ian exhaled, gesturing to the carnage. Look at these wolves. You and Philip could have handled them easily. But they didn't rush us. They played the long game to tire us out. That's a high-level tactic. Someone was pulling the strings from the back. Why do you think he managed to coordinate that? He wasn't a powerhouse. He only engaged because I looked vulnerable. Otherwise, he'd have vanished. I know you're worried, but trust me, I value my own skin more than anyone else does. I'm no martyr, and I'm definitely no noble knight like you. I'm just a mercenary trying to survive. His cold logic left Lauren stunned and silent. I can't even argue with that. She sighed deeply. Fine. But from here on, we talk strategy. No more playing the lone wolf, got it? Fair enough, Ian shrugged. Now let's move. This place reeks of death and failure. Philip grabbed the horses. As he watched Philip hurry off, Ian's mind raced. Everything is stable for now, and the loot was worth the risk. Returning to the moment when, as the werewolf breathed its last, a golden notification flashed, confirming the quest was cleared. A free point in vitality. Not bad, even if I am building a full intelligence and spirit glass cannon. My stats are pretty mid, so I will take the health. But then a strange line caught my eye. Cursed vitality, condensed curse essence. What kind of twisted drop is this? I have never heard of it. Before he could process the mystery, a dark pulsing crystal rolled out from the beast's mangled jaws. Ian snatched up the loot, examining the glow. This mob actually dropped its core essence. This wasn't in the original game. The system window flickered. Condensed cursed essence item. Rank unknown. Use it, and the curse of madness consumes you. Damn, that is metal as hell, but the risk is insane. Still, I am keeping this. It is too rare to trash. Might come in clutch during a future boss fight. Ian stashed the essence away. Back at the camp, Philip was struggling to round up the horses. One stallion was acting up. No matter how hard Philip tugged, it refused to get near Ian. Move it, you stubborn beast. What is wrong with you? Philip yelled, looking frantic. From the horse's perspective, Ian wasn't human. He looked like a literal demon, radiating a suffocating, murderous intent. The animal began to convulse, its eyes rolling back as thick white foam erupted from its mouth. It collapsed with a heavy thud. Panicked, Philip rushed over to check the animal's pulse. His face paled instantly. My God, it is dead. How could a healthy horse just drop like that? Ian stood back, glancing at his blood-soaked clothes. Is my killing intent really that terrifying? Maybe it is the smell of carnage. Poor Philip turned back, shoulders slumped, apologizing to the rest of the group. I swear I raised it well. Lauren just sighed, telling him to be more professional next time. She looked at Ian, offering to pay for the loss. Ian just gave a casual wave of dismissal. Do not sweat it, accidents happen. Though I am feeling pretty exhausted after that fight. He flashed Philip a chilling, predatory grin. The kid felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Finally, the stream. We have reached the forest's heart, Philip panted, looking like he had run a marathon. His legs were jelly because he had been forced to surrender his mount to our main character. While Philip trudged through the mud, Ian was chilling in the saddle like a total boss. This ride is actually smoother than my old one. Ian looked back at the exhausted, sweaty Philip. Feeling a bit bad, he tossed the kid his lunchbox. Wait, is this for me? Listen up. Prep half of that properly and wash your hands. No slacking off. Once the food is done, scrub the grime off my armor. Understood. Yes, absolutely, sir. Philip was actually whistling while he worked. Ian couldn't help but smirk at how easily this guy was bought. A little food and he is my loyal servant. Talk about an easy guy to manipulate. Ian began stripping off his heavy gear. Lauren watched him, her curiosity finally getting the better of her. Just cleaning this hunk of metal, why? Ian asked, not missing a beat. Without a word, Lauren started unfastening her own chest plate. Ian's eyes nearly popped out of his head. I am washing up too. Let us go together, Ian. Froze completely blindsided by her casual attitude. Next thing he knows, they are both in the stream. Is mixed bathing just a thing in this world? I thought I understood the culture here, but this is a whole different level of awkward. They were inches apart in the water. As Ian overthought everything, Lauren broke the silence. Ian, are you hurt? He blinked. Seriously, is she just now checking for wounds? Despite his internal facepalm, he kept it cool. I am fine, not a scratch on me. That is insane. You took down a werewolf solo and look perfectly fine. Your combat style is legendary. You are more efficient than a trained knight. Between your skills and your knowledge, you are no ordinary mercenary. You are just not used to real survival. You were born with a silver spoon, Lauren. I grew up in the gutters. I learned to fight the hard way. You must have grinded like crazy. I chose the path of a holy sword and Tyron's apostle, trading her noble title at House Lauren to serve the crown. Lauren's resolve left Ian spiraling in deep thought. An apostle, becoming a deity's chosen, means inheriting a fragment of their divine essence. Talk about a massive power-up. It sounds legendary, but every miracle comes with a heavy price tag. This realization piqued Ian's interest instantly. Ian blurted out, "Who exactly is?" Tyron. Lauren froze, shooting him, a look of pure disbelief. "Are you for real right now, mortal?" Ian shrugged. "Look, theology isn't my thing. Aquilonia has more gods than I can keep track of, honestly. As a low-stakes mercenary who actually has time to memorize every divine name in the pantheon." Lauren began schooling him on her deity. "Serving him isn't for the weak-minded," she warned solemnly. "Tyron is the god of justice, the illegitimate son of Rosola. He is the blade of judgment, and I am his living vessel. Deception is forbidden. One slip-up and his grace vanishes forever." Ian's mind started racing at those stakes. Justice, just that, Ian teased. Surely he's got a more badass title, right? But inside, he was calculating. Aquilonia is built on betrayal and rot. That is why every deity hides a secret name behind their public mask. Those names are their ultimate weaknesses. For Sola, the light god, it is destiny. Ian snapped back to reality. Lauren paused, reflecting on his query. Tyron's true epithet. I suppose he does have a darker title. Vengeance. Sometimes the only path to retribution is paved with blood and sin. Retribution is the ultimate goal. Vengeance is just justice's shadow, which is why Tyron sanctifies the act of revenge. Everything clicked. Ian finally understood the grim secret fueling the bloody Avengers. Lauren didn't just fall. She evolved. She traded the scales of justice for the blade of vengeance. She'd revealed the dangerous double-edged sword of her faith. One lie, one moment of weakness, and her power evaporates. So their loyalty is their leash. If they defy their god's will, they are stripped of everything. Why choose the path of an Avenger family hatred? If I can find the trigger, I can stop her. I can prevent her transformation. But the second Ian thought it, he realized he was messing with the plot. She has to turn. She is the first stage boss. Damn it, I am still missing too many pieces of this puzzle. Ian gritted his teeth, forcing his racing mind to chill. Patience, Ian, he hissed under his breath. While Ian was trapped in his own head, Lauren broke the silence with a sudden question. You don't serve any god, do you? Ian smirked. That's the plan, and I'd like to keep it that way. Whatever your reasons, I feel a higher power has its eyes on you. You might already be chosen. Maybe, Ian replied, before thrusting a middle finger toward the heavens in a bold challenge to the gods. With that friendly gesture finished, he sighed. I am starving. Let us find food. Just like that, another night vanished. Morning came and the trek resumed, but Philip clearly had not found his off switch yet. You took down a werewolf solo. I am literally getting goosebumps, just thinking about it, Sir Ian. Ian felt a massive migraine brewing. This kid had been yapping non-stop since yesterday evening. Ian let out a weary sigh. It is whatever. You can find beasts like that in every ditch. Philip blinked. But we have not seen anything like that throughout our entire trip, sir. Nothing even close. That stopped Ian cold. He spun around, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. Wait, Zero, I have slaughtered hundreds since I left the swamp and entered the Aesla kingdom. Why was their path so clean? Lauren chimed in, confirming Philip's claim. He's telling the truth. Just a few weak goblins and kobolds. Ian's brow furrowed. Hold on. Which route did you take? Suddenly, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The first city I hit after the swamp was Ban, right on the Azella border. I took on the role of a local merc solving city crises while trekking the main road. The Royal Road. I basically went on a murder spree against every monster in my sight. The realization hit him. I am the one who paved the way for you guys, he muttered. Philip tilted his head. What was that, sir? Ian let out a grim, knowing smirk. I mean, your vacation is over, Philip. This kingdom is a total wasteland of despair. Soon they stumbled upon a decimated village. No. How did it fall so fast? Philip prayed. Holy Rosala, you think rebels did this? We're way too close to the Royal Road for this kind of chaos. Right. How do these punks have the nerve? Beside Philip, Lauren's low growl vibrated with pure menace. Rage dripped from her voice. Sickening. To slaughter innocent civilians, they have no souls. Ian let out a weary sigh. Classic Lauren, always the righteous knight triggered by every injustice. No wonder the Dark Mage is still MIA. She's too busy playing hero to track the real threat. Still, if this chaos is connected, maybe the system will finally drop a spicy new quest. Mid-thought, Ian's eyes locked onto a suspicious crowd gathered just down the path. A smirk played on his lips. Perfect. Looks like our answers are waiting right there. Lauren blinked, her brow furrowed in confusion. Wait, what are you talking about, Ian? He nodded toward the distant figures, his voice cold. Let's go have a little chat with them. Lauren followed his gaze, and instantly the atmosphere turned heavy with her mounting killing intent. For their sake, they better not be the ones who torch this place. If they are, rip. Their only ticket home will be in a wooden box. Cut to the suspicious group ahead. Under the hot sun, the men were frantically digging pits to dump the lifeless bodies. Their boss was losing it over their turtle pace. Move it. It's just 6 shallow graves. Stop lagging. I've got a bad feeling last night's nightmare was an omen. The thunder of hooves suddenly shattered the air, making the leader spin around in a panic. Lauren was hurtling toward them like a comet, her blade glowing with lethal mana. Her aura was straight up suffocating. The thugs' faces drained of color as the night closed in. One thing was certain, she wasn't here to play nice. What the hell is going on? A night. Why now? Before the crew could panic, the boss snapped back into action. Target the horse. Fire on my mark. A night won't leave any witnesses alive. Crossbows were leveled in a heartbeat. Seeing the threat, Lauren let out a blood-curdling war cry. Drop your steel and kneel, the leader shouted back. On what grounds? Give us a reason. Before he could finish his demand, a twitchy subordinate accidentally pulled the trigger. A bolt whistled through the air. The leader's heart stopped as cold sweat drenched his back. That useless clown just signed their death warrants. One stray arrow could get them all slaughtered. The boss screamed in fury. You absolute moron, I never gave the order to fire. Lauren didn't even flinch. With a casual flick of her wrist, she intercepted the projectile. The bolt split perfectly in two. She's a monster, the thugs whimpered in terror. No mercy. Lauren infused her blade with explosive mana and launched it like a spear. The sword streaked forward like a lightning bolt, erasing one man from existence instantly. Watching his comrade get cleaved in half, the leader didn't even blink. No tears here. Instead, he spat on the dead man's memory. Worthless trash. Holy Rusola, how do we survive this? Escaping this beast seemed impossible. Before he could even blink, Lauren was already upon them. The boss and his last 2 survivors slammed their knees into the dirt in desperation. Wait, we're innocent. Just give us a second to explain before you kill us. Lauren stared them down. Save it for later. Right now, you answer to him. Ian trotted up beside her. The moment the leader saw his face, his jaw hit the floor. Hold on. Ian Hop. It looked like the boss actually recognized our main man. This connection might just save their miserable hides, but Ian looked completely unimpressed. Ian's memory was blank. It's me, Mizu, the leader blurted out, desperate to be remembered. The mercenary hunter. We met back in Bankma City. Oh, thank the heavens. Ian recalled his first stop after the swamp. Right, this was the loudmouth from the tavern. Lauren raised an eyebrow. You actually know this guy, Ian nodded. Yeah, we've crossed paths. Mizu exhaled, like he'd just cheated death. Thank the gods, I'll tell you everything, no lies, I swear. His over-the-top eagerness raised red flags for Ian. He was ready to start pulling fingernails if this was a scam, but Mizu was singing like a canary already. Fine, Ian said, cutting through the fluff. Start talking. Why is this village a graveyard? Mizu's face darkened as he began his story. He flashed back to the moment he arrived, a peaceful day shattered, when a battalion of soldiers stormed in torches high, turning the entire village into an inferno before his very eyes. Lunging forward, he seized a soldier's arm, demanding answers. Why would their lord command such madness? Suddenly the captain interjected. Catching the interrogation, the captain barked. This comes from the top. The lord's decree was absolute, every villager here. is being deported to the city of Ondel immediately. Move it or lose it. Lauren's heart nearly stopped at that declaration. The Lord, you mean Marquis Whisper. At the mention of that name, Philip standing right beside her gasped for air. Impossible. Why torch an entire village on a whim? Lauren let out a heavy sigh. It's the smell of war, Philip. The forces of Angela are mobilizing everywhere. Her words sent Ian's mind into a tailspin of dark calculations. It was clear now the kingdom was hoarding every soul and scrap of resource into strategic strongholds, to brace for a brutal clash with their neighbors. As the realization hit, Ian finally broke his silence. They can't guard every border. Better to burn it themselves than leave spoils for the enemy to scavenge. The Marquis was playing a high-stakes game, though his timing was terrifyingly fast. Ian voiced his next burning suspicion. Spill it, who are these corpses and why are you hovering? Mizu flinched, explaining they were the chief's kin. They fought back and paid the ultimate price. The locals tipped us a few coins to give them a burial. We're just digging holes for the dead. Ian narrowed his eyes, sensing a rat. A heavy silence filled the air. Ian's piercing gaze didn't waver, burning holes through the man. Finally, Mizu snapped under the crushing pressure. That's the whole story, I swear on my life. Hearing those words, a wave of bitter disappointment washed over Ian. Target confirmed he's clean. No quest notification popped up. All that intense interrogation had been a total bust. Lauren leaned in, whispering, Ian, you actually buy this? Yeah, he muttered, his energy completely drained. It's legit. I'm heading back to hunt for survivors. Without waiting for a response, Lauren vanished back toward the smoking ruins. Always playing it safe, Ian thought, watching her disappear. Meanwhile, Mizu was sweating bullets, waiting for his move. Catching his breath, Mizu stammered, Lord Ian, can we get back to our business? Ian just gave a dismissive shrug. Knock yourself out, Ian replied. Mizu beamed with relief. Much appreciated. We'll wrap this up and hit the road. Spinning around, he barked at his idle crew. Stop gawking and dig, we're burning daylight. Right then, curiosity struck. Philip tilted his head. What was this main mission he mentioned? To deploy this many troops, it had to be massive. Something big was brewing behind the scenes. Mizu froze his confidence instantly, evaporating into a nervous stutter. Well, that's kind of a classified situation, he muttered. Why? Philip pressed. Before a reply could come, Ian, standing like a shadow, interjected. Some filth are even lowlier than thieves who hijack another hunter's glory. You'd know all about that, wouldn't you, Mizu? Your silence speaks volumes. Assuming I'm just another piece of trash. Ian's voice dripped with pure lethal intent. Mizu began sweating bullets. No way. Listen, there's a pack out there with a taste for human meat. They're prowling your old woods. They've slaughtered dozens, even our client's own son. Watch your back. Half the village has already been ripped to shreds. He trailed off. Ian and Philip were trading looks that screamed, you have no idea. Their faces were unsettling. Confused, Mizu stammered, wait, what did I say? Ian reached down, hoisted a severed werewolf head, and shrugged. Didn't mean to poach your gig, but looks like I already finished it. He shoved the gory trophy right in Mizu's face. Mizu froze, jaw hitting the floor. Their impossible mission, already cleared before they even stepped foot inside. Philip's eyes lit up with fanboy energy. Yo, Ian, can I hold that, please? Guess we're splitting the gold, Ian noted, looking back at the shell-shocked Mizu. Wait, Mizu gasped. A werewolf leader. It was manipulating the pack like a puppet master. It thought like a man. How the hell did you kill a monster that smart? Ian just smirked. Worry about the village later. Night is falling. We need to move. Lauren rolled back from patrol, only to be hit with a wild suggestion from the boys. Escort these guys toward Red Valley. Are you serious? They're decent cannon fodder at least. Plus, we need to report the kills to the survivors and gear up. Supplies are low. Proper preparation is key in this death trap. Lauren went silent, weighing the options. Fine. But I don't like it, she sighed. You're built different, Ian, but the rest. Mercenaries have no faith, no honor. I don't trust them. Mizu fumbled, looking desperate to prove himself. I'm your man. I won't let you down, Mizu chirped. They went back to digging graves. Meanwhile, Ian triggered his clairvoyance, sweeping the area for hostile mana. Nightfall was the witching hour for monsters. Vigilance was their only lifeline. His eyes ignited with a piercing blue radiance. He shifted his gaze toward Lauren. A thick violet aura shrouded her body. Ian's intense stare didn't go unnoticed. Spit it out, Ian. You really can't feel the dark magic choking the air. Lauren blinked, her confusion evident. Dark magic? What are you talking about? Suddenly, her instincts flared. She snatched a crystal shard from her hip pouch. The stone pulsed with the same sinister purple energy Ian had spotted. She focused on the gem but shook her head. No reaction. It's too faint. Your sensor's too weak. But the pulse is steady. And growing. It's a summoning ritual. Suddenly, a heavy, crushing presence warped the atmosphere. They whirled around. Speak of the devil, Ian muttered, narrowing his eyes. Lauren tensed. Unbelievable. A spectral rider emerged from the gloom on a black steed. The rider was terrifyingly headless. Philip's eyes nearly popped out of his skull. A headless knight. What is that thing? Ian remained calm, analyzing the threat. One of the Dark Mage's puppets. Haven't you heard the legends? They're everywhere? The kingdom's harbinger of chaos, a Dullahan. Ian's words hung heavy in the air. Philip shivered. Werewolves then this. This kingdom is officially a dumpster fire. Ian sighed, exhaustion hitting him. An elite monster. Here that Dark Mage is truly persistent. Protecting his investments, I see. Fine. This saves me the walk. He turned to his companion. Philip's sword. Yes, sir. Philip handed it over instantly. Lauren stepped forward, matching Ian's resolve. I'm with you, she signaled. I'll take point, she declared, though her eyes remained sharp. But we wait. This Dullahan is baiting us. Precision was key. They needed to dissect its pattern before committing to a full-scale assault. Ian analyzed the monster's logic. This wasn't just a fight. It was a psychological game of chess. Strike first, and it becomes an iron fortress. Stay still, and it unleashes hell. Its defense was the real nightmare. The play was clear, bait the offensive. Its attacks were straightforward, making a counter-strat viable. Straightforward didn't mean weak, though. One slip-up and they'd be history. While the pros strategized Mizu, the resident clown started barking. Finally, let's get out of here. The silence that followed was deafening. The trio stared at him, faces screaming, Are you for real? What did I say? Something, Mizu stammered. But the damage was already done. His big mouth triggered the boss. A blood-red aura exploded, hitting everyone like a physical wave of agony. Great job, genius, Ian hissed through gritted teeth. Everything was fine until you opened your mouth. The Dullahan had gone full berserk. The atmosphere shifted from tense to lethal in an instant. Crimson energy swirled in the undead knight's palm. Lauren's instincts screamed danger as she turned to Ian. Is that a spell? She pressed. Ian's eyes narrowed as he decoded the shimmering runes. It's an ancient language, he muttered. It was a curse, a declaration of war against humanity. Philip, clutching his head, gasped. You can actually translate that thing? Ian just gave a cold nod. This wasn't luck. Ian possessed a rare edge, the ancient language arcane technique. A level 2 skill he'd actually upgraded by accident. Talk about a legendary mistake. At this rank, he could decipher complex lore, a specialized tool for these ancient-themed nightmare zones. Honestly, he didn't care about the ghost's tragic backstory or the swamp's lore. It was just another target. But the Dullahan was already reaching the climax of its incantation. Ian's blood ran cold. Cover your ears, now, he roared to the group. This wasn't just talk, it was a high-tier sonic curse. Without magic resistance, you were cooked. Too late. The two lackeys who fumbled the warning slumped to the ground instantly. You absolute morons, Mizu cursed, but his bravado vanished as the ground began to tremble. Scratching sounds echoed from the mud. Something was clawing its way back to the living world. Skeletal hands burst through the soil. A literal army of the damned was rising from the muck. Zombies, Philip and Mizu shrieked in unison, their faces turning pale as ghosts. The unconscious henchmen didn't even have time to wake up before becoming a midnight snack for the horde. As the ghouls swarmed, Mizu panicked, swinging his shovel like a madman. Get back, you freaks! Philip turned to Lauren, his voice trembling. Commander, what's the move? Lauren didn't hesitate. Her blade sang as it left its scabbard. I'll handle the front. Stand ready. Philip, back her up, she ordered. He tried to protest, but the woman was already charging. She spurred her horse into the fray. Philip could only pray. Ian, please, don't let us die. Ian watched with a smirk. Focus on the small fry, Philip. I've got my own observations to make. He wanted to see exactly what Lauren was capable of, and she didn't disappoint. The Dullahan sensed the threat. It commanded its phantom steed to crush the intruder beneath its hooves. The horse slammed down, sending jagged magical spikes erupting toward Lauren. With a surge of mana, Lauren's blade became a blur, shattering the spikes like glass. She bridged the gap in a heartbeat, her thrust piercing the Dullahan's spectral armor with lethal precision. Ian watched the supposedly impossible boss take a heavy hit. Damn, she's cracked, he chuckled. Maybe I should have picked the night class. Oh well, let's see if she can solo this. But he knew better. To win, she'd need to decode its movement attributes. Time to warm up, just in case things got messy. After all, a Dullahan isn't a boss you take down easily. Eerie glimmers sparked with every clash. He's definitely hiding something, Lauren realized, her suspicion mounting. The Dullahan's shattered remains converged, knitting back together as if the damage was a mere illusion. A cold sweat broke across her brow. Impossible, the wounds were gone, suddenly right before her eyes. The undead knight chanted another curse, unleashing a lethal barrage of obsidian spikes directly at Lauren. Gritting her teeth, Lauren swung her blade to shatter the projectiles, but then the unexpected happened. The broken shards fused into a deadly whip spear lunging at her with blinding speed. This ambush, Lauren barely raised her steel in time. This bone-fragmented whip was becoming a nightmare to handle. Its unpredictable flexibility made parrying a struggle. The Dullahan kept the whip dancing in a lethal rhythm. Strikes rained from every angle. Lauren's defense crumbled as the whip snaked around her blind spot. It cinched tightly around her left arm, making her face twist in pure, agonizing pain. This corruption is eating through my holy gear. If this keeps up, I'm losing my arm. As Lauren panicked, a sudden silver flash sliced through the air, shattering the bone whip instantly. It was Ian stepping onto the scene with a cold gaze. My bad, the trash mobs took a second. But I've decoded its patterns now. Let's end this. Round 2. Give it everything you've got. Blow this thing to kingdom come. Immediately after, the Dullahan lashed out with its whip once more. Ian and Lauren reacted instantly, pivoting their steeds to evade the strike. Strangely, the monster's aggro seemed locked entirely on Ian. This opening gave Lauren the breathing room she needed. I don't fully get his plan, but I'm trusting you, Ian. My blade is hungry for this headless freak's blood. She channeled every ounce of mana into her frame. Meanwhile, Ian was still fighting for his life, dodging the Dullahan's brutal lashings. He gritted his teeth, the pressure pushing him to the absolute limit. The beast closed the distance, yet Ian didn't flinch. Instead, a cocky smirk played on his lips. My turn to strike back. Right then, the thunderous gallop of Lauren's horse roared from the rear. The Dullahan spun around in a panic, but it was already game over. Lauren drove her blade through its core with a devastating thrust. Yet, despite the direct hit, a sense of dread washed over her. That light again, it's already healing the damage. Is this hopeless, Ian? She screamed. The damn thing is knitting itself back together. I know. Ian cut her off coldly, without missing a single beat. He swung his sword, but he was slashing at nothing. Lauren watched in utter confusion. Is he insane? Why attack thin air? Then Lauren noticed the creature's cloak fragments beginning to vanish. Suddenly, the tattered remains of the cloak fused into a jagged whip, impaling Ian's steed. As the poor animal shrieked in absolute agony, Ian gave a quiet nod of respect. You did good. Rest now. Then he leaped into action, charging toward the final armor fragments. Without a second thought, he brought his blade down, obliterating the gear. Lauren gasped in shock. He'd actually broken the armor itself. With the armor destroyed, its immortality was revoked. Finally, the tide was turning. The miasma cleared, exposing a haunting ashen skull underneath. Lauren's eyes widened in disbelief. A skull, that's its core. Ian's expression shifted to pure lethality the moment he saw it. Radiating murderous intent, he drove his blade downward in a crushing executioner's strike. Steel met bone, triggering a blinding flare from the skull's empty sockets. Suddenly, Lauren felt her limbs freeze up. She was completely paralyzed. It bypasses holy resistance. Did Ian get caught in this trap too? She glanced desperately at him. Ian was also straining against the invisible weight. The crimson skull levitated, pulsating with malice. Ian cursed his luck. The bastard is trying to trigger its true transformation. This is bad, I've got to move now. Forcing his muscles to obey, he managed to twitch his hand. He aimed a lethal strike straight for the dome. Seeing Ian breaking free, the skull froze in absolute shock. It shrieked in a twisted, forbidden tongue. Hearing the desperate cries, Ian just let out a cold smirk. A beast like Andolph always keeps a secret trump card hidden away. A last-ditch effort to survive the inevitable. I knew you'd have one too, you piece of trash. Ian's grin turned predatory as he loomed over the skull. How was he moving? It all came down to Ian's insane stats, endurance, magic resistance, and pure intelligence. His character build was a chaotic mess of active and passive skills, some picked by total accident. But those random traits surged together in a perfect synergy. Instead of total paralysis, he was merely slowed. Back to the chaos, Ian began to lecture the terrified monster. In a bind like this, an escape skill is mandatory. Wouldn't you agree? He slammed the skull into the dirt and coated his blade in mana. Now, where were we? Ian's voice dripped with malice. Skull number 3 broke out in a cold sweat, realizing its time was up. It tried to flee, but how can a legless monster outrun a beast like Ian? In a flash, Ian closed the gap and delivered a bone-shattering slash that sent it tumbling. He unleashed a relentless barrage, making the earth itself erupt. Behind him, Lauren watched from her horse, stunned. She couldn't wrap her head around the scene. The paralysis broke, but what is this power? A cunning monster brought low by nothing but primitive, overwhelming violence. Back to the Dullahan. Under Ian's brutal assault, the skull finally began to splinter. Sensing the end, it shrieked a final, desperate threat. Too bad for the monster, Ian didn't give a single damn. He hoisted his sword and drove it deep into the skull's center. Upon impact, a blinding supernova erupted. A massive shockwave forced Lauren to shield her eyes from the blast. When the dust settled, the skull lay in ruins. Only then did Ian finally exhale. Your hatred and nonsense mean nothing to me. Seeing you dead is more than enough. Suddenly, Ian's sword shattered under the intense pressure of the final explosion. He clicked his tongue in annoyance. Another blade bites the dust. Meanwhile, the dark sorcerer sensed his knight's demise. The headless knight he'd spent ages perfecting was gone, and he was losing his mind. First, the kobold chief, and now the swamp knight, that damn crimson bastard. My precious seeds ruined, he roared, hurling forbidden grimoires across the room in a fit of rage. It took a moment for him to stop the mental breakdown. He hissed, No, no. This is just a chance to wipe out that filth sooner. Not just Angeline, but this entire world will burn and return to its primal state. As its guardian, I will transcend humanity and become a god, and when that day comes, I'll tear that bastard apart, he swore. Cut to a quiet village. Two farmers were busy gossiping. Hey, did you hear? The cook finally collapsed? The man in the hat didn't even blink. Makes sense. Losing his only son to wolves would break anyone. Changing the subject, the farmer with the hoe asked, any news on those mercenaries? The ones who acted so tough about the wolves. No clue, the other replied. Right then, Ian's party began to roll into the village. The arrival of these strange newcomers immediately drew a crowd. The whispers started instantly. What's the deal? Is that a knight in full plate? And why is there a pot on his back? Then all eyes landed on Mizu, who was strutting at the front. Hey look, that's one of the mercenaries. He's carrying a severed head. Is that the beast that's been hunting us? Look at that heroic face. He must have been the one to slay it. A true legend. The waves of praise hit Mizu like a drug. His ego inflated as he turned back to Ian's group. We're an hour early. Good thing you had a world-class guide like me, right, Sir Ian? Do I really have to keep lugging this head around? It's not that I'm spooked, but it's unsettling and surprisingly heavy. Care for me to sever your hand and lighten that burden? Griffin asked icily. Mizu recoiled instantly, stammering, no way, just a joke. He pivoted back forward with lightning speed. Witnessing such frantic obedience, Ian could only exhale a weary sigh. It appeared he had fully committed to his new role as a guide. The sight triggered a sharp memory for Ian. Back then, Mizu was tirelessly shoveling dirt to bury his fallen comrades. Watching him toil like a beast of burden, Philip interjected. You should probably take a breather. Mizu didn't even pause his rhythm, his shovel continuing to bite into the earth as he muttered, I'm fine. I need to do this. I'm the sole survivor, and I won't have my men returning as vengeful spirits to haunt me. They suffered enough in life, Mizu added, his voice thick with grief. The raw sorrow in his tone left young Philip speechless. After a heavy silence, Philip turned toward Lauren. What's the move, master? We're already trailing far behind our original schedule. He handed Lauren a glistening skewer of roasted meat. Taking the snack, she nodded solemnly. You're right about that. Ever since we teamed up with Ian, it's been non-stop combat. We've already lost 2 horses in the chaos. And that's going to cost us, Philip noted. At this pace, reaching the graveyard forest will take an entire week. We won't have a second to explore anywhere else. Just then, Mizu finished his grim task and caught the tail end of their stress. Having laid his friends to rest, he stepped toward the group and chimed in with a surprising question. Are you heading for the graveyard forest? A week is overkill if you take the hidden shortcuts known only to veteran mercs. I can get you there in 5 days, even with a village stop. His claim immediately piqued Ian's interest. Can you actually back that up? Ian asked, his voice steady. Mizu flinched under the gaze, stammering, well, it's a treacherous trek. Before he could retreat into excuses, Ian cut him off firmly. Then it's settled. You're leading us to the graveyard forest. The command sent Mizu into a tailspin. Wait, what? Are you serious right now? He cried out, spiraling into a panic. To silence the outburst, Ian flicked a gold coin through the air. Mizu snatched it out of habit, his confusion mounting. I don't get why you're obsessed with that cursed woods, he muttered, his eyes drifting down to the treasure in his palm. The brilliant, shimmering glow of the metal nearly blinded him. Hold on. What kind of gold is this? Mizu gasped. Back in reality, Ian watched Mizu with a calculating gaze. 1 royal gold coin, a true prize. It's worth double any standard currency. Since I snatched his wolf hunting bounty, he's definitely hurting for cash. There's no way he turns down this payday. Initially, I was just escorting Lauren, but things have shifted. Having him around as muscle against the dark mage is a solid strategic move. As Ian plotted, Mizu stopped. They had reached the mouth of an inn. Mizu grinned, gesturing inside. The grub here is top tier and the ale is even better. Let's split up to handle our errands and regroup here later. I need to go finalize the wolf quest details. Ian nodded, casually, tossing a few silver pieces to Philip. Go secure some fresh mounts at the stables. Get one for yourself too. Philip beamed, his excitement radiating. Thank you so much, sir. I'm on it. It's a loan, kid. Bring back every bit of change, Ian added coldly. Lauren then turned to him, her expression curious. Didn't you mention visiting the Rusola Temple Mind? If I tag along, I'd like to offer up some prayers myself. Ian immediately dismissed the idea with a wave. Negative. It's better if we move separately for now. I've got another stop to make that might take some time. Plus, if everyone is gone, who monitors those two? Lauren considered his logic, realizing that maintaining a secure perimeter was vital. Fine, she conceded, letting him go. Ian slipped away toward the cathedral alone. The excuse he'd fed Lauren was a complete fabrication. He knew that for a knight like Lauren, faith and honor were everything. In other words, they're easy marks for greedy priests. I'm not looking to bleed more gold by bringing a noble fool along, so solo was the only way. Ian reached the heavy doors. He pushed inside to find the sanctuary deserted. At the far end, a statue sat in a kneeling position upon the dais. Its palms were upturned as if cradling an invisible gift. Strangely, a shimmering ethereal dust was cascading from its hands. The sight halted Ian in his tracks. This wasn't some flashy magecraft or a trick of the light. This was a genuine high-tier miracle. A meditation temple. The perfect place to purge these foul impurities from my soul. Just as Ian felt a surge of hope, the golden dust erupted into a blinding radiance multiplying before his very eyes. What the hell? What's happening with this thing? Ian hissed. Suddenly, the shadow of an old man loomed behind him. What the hell? What is with all this? Ian hissed, completely baffled. Suddenly, a weathered old man closed in from the shadows behind him. Who are you, the man? Began his voice, laced with suspicion. This isn't the time for prayer, so why? He froze mid-sentence. An otherworldly glow from the statue caught his eye, stealing the breath from his lungs. Then his voice trembled, dripping with newfound awe. Oh, great Russula, what brings a holy apostle of light to such a humble backwater? Ian stood there, totally lost. Excuse me, did you just say, apostle? The old man instantly switched up, flashing his most sugary saint-like smile. Precisely. The last time Lady Russula bestowed such a blinding holy radiance was during the Imperial Apostle's visit. That was ages ago. Ian started to connect the dots, but skepticism still clouded his mind. This guy's definitely got the wrong person, Ian thought. I haven't done anything to deserve this saintly hype. Ian turned back, trying to keep it real. Look, Gramps, I'm just a low-tier mercenary. No holy missions here. You're not, the old man blinked, confused. Ian didn't answer, his eyes locked onto the stone statue instead. A cold shiver ran down his spine. It felt like an invisible gaze was boring into him from behind those stone eyes. I can't fake being a saint while God is literally watching, he thought. The divine smiting would be legendary. Seeing Ian wasn't part of the flock, the old man's eyes gleamed with a predatory kindness. Well, in that case, how would you like to sign up for Lady Russula's protection right now? It's a life-changing opportunity. Ian smirked. This was peak comedy. Just as they were yapping about apostles, a literal quest window popped up. Floating before him was the 4 Apostles of Russula, a divine quest straight from the God of humanity himself. Become a divine representative and unlock a fragment of true holy power. Now that's a tempting buff. He recognized this from the old game days. Back then, his level was too trash to even trigger the prompt. But in this reality, the level caps were gone. The game's restrictions had vanished, leaving the door wide open. Sensing Ian's hesitation, the old man leaned in his voice, dropping to a reassuring whisper. Take your time. Just remember, when you finally see the light, don't forget your old pal Edward. Ian flashed a sharp, mischievous grin. Oh, don't worry, Edward. I'll definitely remember you. In fact, I need a little favor right now. Edward's face lit up instantly. Anything for you, sir. Ian reached into his inventory, pulling out a handful of glowing purple gems. Since you've got that holy light, can you scrub the corrupted mana off these? The moment Edward saw the stones, his jaw hit the floor. Tainted mana. This didn't come from any normal monster, Ian shrugged. So can you fix him? Or what? I'm on a tight schedule, leaving by tomorrow afternoon. Edward stammered. Of course, I wouldn't dream of saying no. The goddess is generous today, but alas, my old bones have their limits. I can't possibly cleanse all these gems in one go, unless you'd care to make a small donation to the temple. For a price, I'll push my body to the limit and pray all night just for you. Edward flashed a grin that was more shady merchant than holy priest. Ian immediately smelled the scam. Ian glanced back at the statue and sighed loudly. Man, following Russula is way more expensive than I thought. His finger hovered over the decline button. Suddenly, the golden particles swirling around the statue began to flicker. The holy light vanished instantly. Edward let out a strangled yelp of terror. The goddess, she's angry. Wait, stop, he screamed. Forget the money, it's free, all free. Ian paused, feigning confusion. Wait, what? The old man bowed so low his forehead nearly hit the floor. I was greedy, I've made a terrible mistake. Assisting someone so clearly beloved by Lady Russula is its own reward, no payment necessary. Like magic, the golden dust reignited, bathing the statue in a warm, forgiving glow once more. Ian didn't buy the act. Then get to work, Edward. Show the goddess exactly how loyal you are. Yes, sir, Edward whimpered. After dumping the cursed stones on the trembling old man, Ian walked away. He headed straight back to the inn, where the rest of the crew was already deep into their cups. Mizu spotted him and raised a mug high. Yo, look who it is. Our legendary monster hunter has returned. Whatever hype Mizu had been feeding Philip, it worked. Philip's jaw was practically on the table. Is it true? Did you really one-tap that swamp beast? Tell us everything, man. Ian just shook his head at the rowdy bunch. Drunk already. Anyway, where's the kid with the change? Philip tossed over their last few coins to Mizu, admitting their funds were officially bone dry. With new mounts secured, Philip leaned in, eyes glowing with hype. Yo, did you actually slay a dragon? Regardless of the truth, Ian shot a glare so icy, it instantly killed the mood and sobered Mizu up. Chill, I didn't spill everything. He was just curious, so I gave him a tiny teaser about your past. Ian gritted his teeth, correcting the hype. It wasn't a dragon. Just an overgrown adult drake. Huge difference. A common lizard with wings is nothing compared to a true dragon, but his logic was lost on them. The duo slammed the table, shouting, "Wait, you actually fought one. You aren't capping right now, are you?" Ian snapped at the noise, threatening to silence them permanently if they didn't stop testing his legendary patience. His threats went in one ear and out the other. These two were too deep in their own curiosity. "So why the swamp?" Mizu chimed in, admitting he was just as thirsty for the tea as the others. "Aren't those lands cursed? Rumor says, unless you carry the ancient bloodline, you're toast the moment you enter." Their interrogation triggered a memory. Ian recalled the system's cryptic messages regarding his origin and special status. Pretty sure my character window mentioned being a descendant of the ancients. He realized, piecing the puzzle together. Was that his cheat code, his hidden birthright protecting him from the shadow barrier's madness and soul-crushing despair? That barrier was a massive rift of pure darkness, an eldritch wall tearing the entire continent in two. Most of Aquilonia's chaos stemmed from that shadow rift. Every major threat, including the Dark Mage, was connected. My current target is no exception. While I planned, Philip and Mizu's incessant yapping finally pushed a button. Lauren snapped. She slammed her mug down, the impact echoing through the room like a thunderous war drum. "Zip it, you two. You're drunk and annoying. Get out of here and sleep it off already." Her roar hit like a physical wave. The duo instantly folded, realizing they had pushed their luck too far. Philip bowed out respectfully, while Mizu just scratched his head, offering a sheepish apology to his terrifying boss. They retreated to their rooms, still bickering. "Your fault. No, you're the one who wouldn't stop talking." Ian watched the chaos, taking a sip of beer. "My ears honestly never get a single second of peace." Suddenly, Lauren broke the silence, her tone shifting. "Hey Ian, let's take a walk. We need to talk." There were things she couldn't say in the tavern, so they stepped out into the quiet, moonlit streets. The atmosphere was heavy. Lauren broke the silence first, her eyes searching his for any sign of weakness. "Ian, that item you took from the Headless Knight. Are you feeling okay? No weird side effects?" The loot. Ian's mind flashed back to the moment the undead rider finally fell under his relentless blade. He remembered standing over the shattered skull, cursing his luck as he examined his ruined, chipped sword. But then a flicker of movement. Something dark and oily slithered out from the knight's hollow, broken remains. It lunged like a shadow bullet, aiming straight for him, while he was distracted by his broken gear. Thanks to his insane reflexes, Ian snatched the projectile mid-air. What kind of cursed trash is this? Before he could toss it, a strange cold sensation began creeping up his arm, invading his very soul. Hissing whispers filled his mind. A chorus of voices screamed for the end of humanity and eternal death. Shadowy hallucinations manifested, clawing at his throat, trying to drag his consciousness into a pit of despair. Ian just smirked. This level of psychological warfare was amateur hour compared to the hell he'd already survived. Is that it? This madness is nothing. I've endured far worse as a tragic pawn in this game. A shockwave of pure energy erupted from him, vaporizing the hallucinations instantly and reclaiming control of his mind. He stared at the object in his hand, eyes narrowing. "So you're the culprit. Time for some mana-based discipline." Ian flooded his palm with raw magic, crushing the object with enough force to shatter tempered steel. The struggling stopped instantly. Silence followed. Ian wondered for a second if he had completely obliterated the thing. It felt submissive now, like a new limb had suddenly sprouted, humming with a familiar magical frequency. It was the same rush he felt when first sensing mana. Slowly, he unfurled his fingers to see. A tiny snake lay there, looking remarkably cute. Ian's lips curled into a rare, genuine smile. A snake. "So you were the one talking to me. Does this mean you're my new familiar now?" The tiny serpent glided across his palm, cinching around his finger like a living band. Ha! A fresh drop, the ultimate loot from the Headless Horseman, the unique grade Swamp's Grudge. This serpent ring triggers a disorientation curse the moment a battle kicks off. Opponents with low stats will descend into pure panic, freezing them when things get lethal. Unbelievable. To think a single item could shatter the seal on this power. Ian admired his new gear, reassuring Lauren that he was completely unscathed. Lauren beamed at his confidence, exclaiming that he never failed to shock her. After crushing werewolves and the Headless Horseman, it seems even that knight's curse couldn't touch you. Then again, surviving impossible life or death odds is basically your daily routine. Navigating that cursed swamp solo. Ian felt a headache coming on just hearing her mention it. Lauren turned back, admitting that for a soldier like herself, stuck at the edge of the world, meeting a legend like Ian felt like pure destiny. Ian went quiet, searching her eyes before asking what she was truly getting at. Lauren finally dropped the act. She'd only discovered the Dark Mages right after her recall orders. Just as she prepared to leave the frontier, a mysterious letter reached her hands. It was from her brother Vernon, the current head of House Lauren and the royal family's shield. A prestigious lineage. Yet Ian searched his memory and found zero mention of him in-game. Ian voiced his suspicion. Isn't it odd for a tyrant apostle to rot at the border? Especially while her brother guarded the king. Lauren sighed, admitting her presence would have eclipsed him. Vernon could never step out of her shadow. A rare noble sacrifice in such a cynical world. Perhaps that selfless heart is why the goddess Tyrion chose her. Lauren continued her story. But Vernon knew the truth. He was desperate to carve out his own legacy. He wanted to outshine her. His letter warned that the seeds of corruption were sprouting. Evil is festering while the king gears for war. Our target mage is definitely involved. Ian reached out, asking to see the document. Lauren blinked, caught off guard by the request. She handed it over, noting nothing about him surprised ever anymore. Ian scanned the lines quickly. Ian connected the dots. The brother was hungry for glory, using this crisis as a ladder. He's trying to skyrocket his family's prestige. But Ian kept his darkest theories to himself. He wants to purge rivals and seize their territory under the guise of heroism. The minor nobles would eat it up. But why involve his sister at all? Ian probed further. He's likely benching you so you don't steal his spotlight. Lauren froze, processing the harsh truth. It's a painful reality, she whispered. Initially, she had no interest in hunting the mage herself. She wrote to him, but Vernon has been radio silent for over 30 days. Ian's pulse quickened. 30 days is an eternity when you're hunting a monster of that caliber. Ian stayed silent, but the weight of his words hit Lauren hard. She knew the stakes. He's tough, but he's playing a lethal game. We can't assume the worst just yet. They had to unmask the mastermind, pulling the strings of this nightmare. Her knuckles turned white from the strain. Finally, the pieces of the puzzle clicked for Ian. The origin of the blood-soaked Avenger was finally clear. This is why she eventually storms the palace. This tragedy fuels her regicide, transforming her into a literal phantom of pure vengeance. In the original timeline, Vernon's fate was a mystery. He likely targeted the wrong culprit. By hunting the Angeline conspirators, she unknowingly marched straight toward her own execution. Consumed by grief, she was nothing but a pawn. Lauren took a breath, regaining her composure. Finding the mage is vital, but there's a deeper reason I'm trusting you with this. We're fighting a shadow. I need a partner who masters both the blade and the mind. Finding an ally who hates the dark mage would be a total jackpot. As Lauren began her long-winded monologue, Ian's mind drifted. He wondered why she was dumping all this lore on him when he hadn't even asked. Luckily, a new chain quest just popped up. It looked like some easy prey were walking straight into his trap. Quest alert, the Fallen. Objective, hunt down and punish dark-worshipping nobles. Rewards, massive gold and mystery stat points. The loot was definitely top-tier bait. Still, Ian wasn't about to dive into a mission without a solid blueprint. Ian finally cut in, I'm a mercenary. Talk is cheap in my world. Should I consider this a formal contract? Are we making a deal? Lauren didn't miss a beat, quickly nodding. Absolutely, Ian. This is high-stakes business. Given the massive risk, I'll ensure the payout is legendary. I'll even grant you a noble title if you want. Before she could finish her pitch, Ian shut her down. The fine print doesn't matter right now. Focus up. We need to rework the terms, especially me tagging along. I'm a walking target. I stand out too much. To expose the dark mage, you have to infiltrate the royal castle and investigate from within. Furthermore, once you're inside those walls, there's no easy exit. The entire kingdom is currently on high alert for war. Let's divide and conquer these corrupt rats. You handle the inside, I'll sweep the outside. Ian went cold and silent. If she bites, I'll be flying solo. Perfect, since those corrupt noble targets are exactly who I need to hunt. I can crush them on my own. Plus, keeping Lauren away from the outside chaos minimizes any unnecessary risks. Lauren hesitated, her brow furrowing with concern. But Ian, I still need a witness out here to expose the truth. I need proof of the dark mage. Ian suddenly remembered their guide. Well, you've got other mercenaries in the squad. That's right, we have Mizu, Lauren realized. Ian shrugged. Sleep on it. We aren't out of time just yet. There's still time, Ian advised. Lauren looked puzzled. I don't get you. Usually people would be haggling over the price. She stared at him confused. Ian let out a faint, cold smirk. Is that why you dangled that noble title? Yes, Lauren admitted. But honestly, I believe you're destined for a much bigger role in this kingdom's future. The second title left her lips. Ian immediately killed the idea. Hard pass. Now, if you offered cold cash, maybe we'd be talking. Ian only said that because he had already seen how this world's story ends. From saving vengeful knights to slaughtering those consumed by darkness, it was all just a means to an end. I'll find the culprit who summoned me here and get my answers, and then I'm going to teach them a lesson. To do that, I must survive. I'll overcome everything no matter the cost. By dawn, the group was ready. Everyone was geared up and ready to move. Lauren took charge, giving out the final orders before they departed. We're following Mizu's lead through the valley toward the graveyard forest. Mizu, you're up. Lead the way. She turned to Mizu, while those two idiots kept shooting nervous glances at Ian, still embarrassed by their previous failure. Ian ignored them, his eyes locked on the two stones in his palm. A dark, satisfied smile played on his lips. Finally, the essence. Once these are purified, I'm going to have some real fun. Soon, they reached the valley's edge. As they touched the Red Valley's border, Philip started his usual yapping. Yo Mizu, what is this mess? What kind of guide are you? This terrain is a nightmare. The horses can't even push through this junk. Mizu scratched his head looking stunned. It wasn't like this before. Philip barked. Then what the hell happened? Mizu thought for a moment. Well, it's been 5, maybe 6 years since I was last here. Philip's jaw dropped. Philip fumed, but Mizu quickly tried to de-escalate. Relax, it's way safer now. No more monsters like there used to be. This valley used to be crawling with goblins and ogres. From the rear, Ian's ears perked up at those names. Goblins and ogres, Ian pressed. Mizu nodded. Yeah, their old nesting ground. They used to strip the land bare. Only the tallest trees survived their hunger. But now, it's completely lush and green. Suddenly, Ian reached out. Ian snatched a falling leaf out of the air. He held it up, his eyes narrowing as he inspected the specimen. A sickly purple magical aura pulsed through the leaf's veins. One look told him this place was extremely dangerous. It's green because nothing is brave enough to eat this poison anymore, Ian muttered. Philip paled. Wait, what? Ian looked at him coldly. Remember those walking corpses we fought the other day? It's the same energy. The zombies, Philip stammered in fear. A horrifying thought suddenly struck him. Wait a minute, you don't mean… Can monsters turn into zombies too? Ian stared ahead. The entire forest is rotting from dark energy. Something is wrong. Ian dropped the bombshell. Just as his quest notification warned, this was the place. The contaminated forest. A hellscape born from the absolute madness of the dark barrier. The rot had spread deep into these outskirts. Beside him, Philip's face paled with dread. Graveyards, contamination. What's next? Philip muttered, his voice trembling at the gravity of it. We're barely a day out of the valley, and everything's already going south. From now on, stay sharp, Ian snapped. Report any ripple in the air immediately. Like that freakish thing over there, Mizu asked, pointing toward a twisted, gnarled trunk. Red pulsating fruit hung from it. Ian narrowed his eyes, a juvenile man-eating tree. Don't even breathe near it, Ian commanded. But what happens if we get close? Mizu's voice cracked. Ian smirked. Go ahead, big guy. It's dying to meet you. A man-eater, Mizu shrieked. Move fast and stay quiet, Ian hissed. Let's go, hurry. Terrified, Mizu crept forward. Right. Keeping my distance is definitely the move here. The group shuffled past Nerves, fried eyes locked onto the silent wooden predator. They watched for any sudden twitch. From the rear, Ian whispered, Stay steady, everyone. Almost there, but the moment he spoke, the red fruits began to thrash violently. A jagged branch whipped out like a snake. Ian dove, narrowly escaping the lethal strike. His horse wasn't so lucky. Its head was snatched clean off in a bloody blink. Screams erupted as the trap sprung. Ian's teeth ground together. You overgrown weed. I literally just bought that horse yesterday. The monster quickly retracted its bloodied limb. Ian snapped. His eyes ignited like twin searchlights as he lunged toward the bark. You're paying for my horse, he roared, closing the gap in a heartbeat. His blade flashed a silver arc that severed the monstrous branch like wet paper. The mangled wood hit the dirt. Lauren's group stared at the grotesque remains, absolutely horrified. Sweet heavens. Philip choked out bile, rising at the sight of the abomination. You said we'd be safe, Mizu yelled. Ian shrugged, wiping the gore from his blade. Turns out it hunts by sound too. At least you'll finally shut up now. He turned to Lauren. Horse is gone. I'm gonna need a hand with my gear. I've got it, Lauren replied, reaching for the pack. But as she touched it, agony flared through her left arm. She winced, forcing the scream back down. You okay? Ian asked, sensing the shift. It's nothing, she lied, masking the pain. Ian, can you find the heart of this rot? He blinked, looking at her skeptically. Now, with your brother's life on the line, he studied her, searching for her motives. Still, he had to agree. This road's layout felt like a deliberate, twisted trap. Someone didn't want them reaching Hell Forest. This corruption was a calculated, lethal barricade. Mizu overheard the plan and exploded. Deep into this nightmare, no way, man. I signed up for a guide job, not a suicide mission into the abyss. Lauren stepped in, her voice calm. I'll double your pay, Mizu. Just stay with us. On my honor, I'll ensure you make it out of here, in one piece. The mention of extra cash worked like magic. Mizu's anger vanished in an instant. Well, for a bonus like that, I guess a little danger never hurt anyone. Lead the way, Ian said, activating his clairvoyant magic detection skill immediately. His sixth sense flared, expanding his awareness until the entire forest map became clear. A pulse of mana rippled outward, mapping every shadow and hidden threat around them. Follow me, Ian ordered. They watched in awe as he carved through the man-eaters. He was a whirlwind of steel, butchering every monster in their path until, fresh off slaying a carnivorous tree, Ian suddenly froze, Mizu trailing closely behind him, noticed the halt and asked, What's wrong? Ian's gaze sharpened. We've got company, he warned. Following his stare, countless rotting corpses of goblins and elves began clawing their way out of the dirt. Philip and Mizu stared in absolute horror. The gruesome sight had them screaming in sheer panic. Goblins and elves. But they're zombies. Ian gritted his teeth, his grip tightening on his blade. Just as deadly as before, he muttered, except now they're basically walking fungus. As he braced for the clash, Lauren's voice cut through the air. Leave this rabble to me. A radiant pale blue mana suddenly swirled around her entire body. Ian clicked his tongue and sheathed his sword. About time you used that, he remarked. Meanwhile, the undead horde surged forward like a mindless, ravenous wave. They had gone completely feral. Lauren raised her weapon and bellowed. Everyone hit the deck now. Sensing the massive power buildup, the group instantly dived for cover to stay clear of the blast. Lauren swung her blade, unleashing a blinding arc of holy light that tore through everything in its path. With that single strike, the entire zombie horde was mowed down like dry grass. Watching the carnage, Ian was impressed. Holy power is the ultimate counter for dark abominations. I'll handle the rest. But his relief was short-lived. He noticed the divine energy flickering violently around Lauren's form. Her own power was lashing back at her. Suddenly, she coughed up a spray of crimson blood and crumpled to the ground. Philip scrambled to her side, panic-stricken. My lady, what's happening? He kept shouting for her. Ian, watching from the rear, felt his stomach drop as Lauren remained motionless. Things just went from bad to worse. Great, so it's a solo mission now, he sighed, turning to Mizu. Mizu, guard the horse and hand over every drop of oil we have. Mizu nodded frantically. 4 heavy bags of oil were quickly lined up before Ian. A realization suddenly dawned on Mizu. Wait, you aren't actually. Ian didn't offer an explanation. He just looked back with cold determination. Hand me the torch and back up, Philip. Don't overthink, just survive. Be careful. And you. Mizu's voice trembled with worry. Ian slung the oil over his shoulder. I'm heading for the forest's heart. Mizu gasped. Into that hellhole alone, don't make me repeat myself, Ian snapped. Mizu hesitated, but Philip called out from behind. Just, come back in one piece. Right, please stay alive. Mizu echoed before sprinting back to Philip. Ian watched them muttering. Worry about yourselves. Keeping Lauren safe is your only priority right now. He stashed the oil into his inventory and soaked the torch until the flame roared brightly. Time to play bait for these demons, he whispered, his knuckles whitening around his sword's hilt. He glanced back one last time. Mizu was shaking Philip. Snap out of it, we have to protect her. Get a grip, man. Meanwhile, on Ian's side, the real work was just beginning. He charged, hacking through a fresh batch of undead before they could even fully stand from the ground. Ian intercepted the monsters. Where do you think you're going, you rotting freaks? A brutal swing sent a zombie goblin hurtling through the air toward a permanent grave. The commotion worked. Every dead eye in the vicinity locked onto Ian while he continued the slaughter. Suddenly, a glint flashed from the canopy above. A massive, toothy maw lunged down at him. It was a man-eating plant. Suddenly, a blue screen flickered, unique trait focus activated. The world slowed down. Ian read the trajectory perfectly and sidestepped the strike with ease. You don't even drop experience points, so stay out of my way. Ian's blade became a blur. He shredded the goblin zombies and the plant's vines into a pile of useless mulch. After clearing the trash, Ian smirked at the dark woods. Bet that struck a nerve, didn't it? Don't lose your cool yet, the fun's just starting. He bolted, disappearing deeper into the shadows. A massive horde of undead scrambled after him. He didn't bother killing them, they were just too weak. Wasting time on small fry wasn't the plan. They couldn't catch him, but the real hunt was beginning. A colossal rotting arm erupted from the earth, revealing a gargantuan stomach-churning zombie right in Ian's path. Unfazed by the roadblock, Ian lunged forward with zero hesitation. In just a few explosive bounds, he scaled the Titan's bloated frame, clearing it effortlessly. Zip it, you freak. Ian snarled, launching off its skull for a speed boost and soaring through the air like a predator. The behemoth was surprisingly fast, snapping its massive head around the moment Ian zipped past. A heavy strike whistled toward him, but Ian narrowly escaped, only his torch was smashed to splinters. Sticking the landing, Ian smirked as the realization hit. So you're a named boss, aren't you? He was left in the dark, but silence fell as his unique trait, Sixth Sense, suddenly flared to life. Sweet. Totally forgot about this buff. With his vision enhanced, the shadows held no more secrets. Finally, his target was in sight, the source of the rot, a twisted parasitic ancient tree. Looming before him stood a titan of wood, its trunk pulsating with countless eerie blood-red fruits. Its grotesque size was baffling. This thing must have been feasting on filth for ages to grow this massive. Its history didn't matter, though. Ian just needed to stick to the script and execute the plan. Time to use the good stuff. Ian drew out the purified essence he'd been saving for this moment. The core began hungrily draining mana from his arm. It's literally a magic magnet, he noted. So that's the gimmick. But before he could finish, a jolt of danger spiked through his nerves. He glanced up just as a carnivorous maw from the plant lunged straight for his throat. Catching it at the last second, Ian leaped back narrowly, avoiding the snap of those serrated teeth. That maw was colossal. Suddenly, dozens of other mouths hissed to life, closing in from every side. Ian bolted, teeth clenched. No time for strategizing, the man-eater was officially on the offensive. It unleashed a coordinated frenzy of maws trying to swallow him whole. Yet Ian's god-tier reflexes held firm. He danced between the strikes, but the plant realized its biting game wasn't enough to catch him. It shifted tactics, summoning massive roots to join the fray. Suddenly, the earth beneath him shuddered. Lethal wooden spikes erupted from the soil, forcing Ian to floor it to avoid being impaled. Persistent piece of junk. Ian cursed, sprinting while weighing his options for a counterattack. Direct combat was a waste. Instead, Ian reached into his inventory and pulled out jars of oil. Mid-sprint, he doused the area, coating the snapping maws in a layer of highly flammable grease. Ditching the empty containers, Ian casually tossed them and began channeling his internal fire magic. The oil ignited instantly, sending a devastating wave of fire roaring across the plant's writhing tentacles. The maws were charred to cinders as agonizing otherworldly screeches ripped through the forest air. Satisfaction washed over Ian. Classic logic, nothing beats good old-fashioned fire against wood. If I'd just checked a wiki earlier, I wouldn't have wasted points on that trash gray magic. He lamented his lost points while watching the monstrous tree burn with satisfying intensity. But his focus shifted. I've had a nasty vibe about this place since I stepped in. Bingo. There's the second weak point. A specific section of the trunk began to glow ominously. A pulse of purple light throbbed from way up high. Are you kidding me? It's that high. Complaining didn't stop him. Ian lunged forward. Sensing the threat, the tree prepared its final defense. It unleashed a torrential blast of thick white mist to blow its tiny attacker away. Shielding his eyes, the sheer force of the gale knocked Ian back, giving the monster a window. The remaining healthy maws swarmed in to finish him, but Ian just grinned like a madman. Perfect. I was waiting for you to try and douse those flames with that steam. That mist was the monster's emergency cooling system, a desperate move to survive the fire. It triggers an AoE strike, while self-extinguishing, using its many heads as a living shield. But in that defensive frenzy, its true weak point is left completely wide open for a counter. This was the ultimate opening for a mage. Grinning, Ian poured every ounce of mana into the essence. Ian unleashed the crimson spell Fire Breath. Usually a close-range burst, but amplifying it with the essence would trigger total devastation. The power spike was legendary, but then Ian's blood ran cold. Wait, his eyes widened in pure, unadulterated shock. Why isn't it stopping? He yelled. Horror struck as he realized the truth, the essence was hungrily siphoning every drop of his mana. This wasn't in the game mechanics. Ian's frantic cry was swallowed by a blinding supernova-like flare erupting from his clenched fist. Seconds later, a massive pillar of hellfire slammed into the tree. The creature shrieked, letting out a gut-wrenching, agonizing scream. The sheer recoil was brutal. Ian gnashed his teeth, straining every muscle to stabilize the chaotic roaring torrent of flames. He fought to keep his aim true. On the other side, the man-eating horror was caught in the center of a divine apocalypse. It vanished into ash instantly. Ian collapsed, clutching his face and groaning in sheer pain. God, everything's burning. That mana drain was insane. Why is this essence so different from the game I used to have? Legendary relics and holy armor. Did that high-tier gear help me control this volatile power back then? Lost in thought, Ian stared at the now-dimmed essence. The glowing core had faded. The mana density is trashed, he muttered. It was barely a shadow of its former vibrant self. I could have used this 50 more times with the right weapon. He turned his gaze toward the forest, now a sea of fire. The tree was nothing but a roaring bonfire. At least it's burning well, he whispered. Finally, you can rest in peace. Ian pulled a steel blade from his inventory to finish the job. Meanwhile, Tethan spun toward Mizu, his face white as a sheet. He'd just seen a massive pillar of fire pierce the clouds from the heart of the dark ancient woods. What just happened? He stammered. The wildfire was spreading, and there was no doubt Ian was the one who pulled the trigger. Just as Mizu spoke, heavy footsteps crunched behind them. The timid boy whipped around his heart, hammering against his ribs. Who's there? He panicked. Then Ian emerged from the shadows looking like a total wreck. Relax, it's just me. Lower your guard. Mizu let out a shaky breath, his tension finally breaking. Ian, is that really you? Are you even okay? Do I look okay? Ian barked. Get me a cloth. I need to wipe this disgusting gunk off before I lose it. He couldn't stop thinking about that cursed tree. Who knew finishing it off would turn the monster into a walking berserk, ticking time bomb? Its heads exploded like grenades. Ian snapped back to reality and glared at Mizu. Stay alert. If things get ugly, save yourself. You're on your own if more show up. With that grim warning, he headed toward where Lauren and Philip waited. You're finally here, Philip shouted. Ian's eyes immediately landed on Lauren. What's wrong with her? She looks like she's fading fast. Philip's voice trembled with anxiety. Lauren was drenched in a cold, deathly sweat, her face twisted in a mask of pain. Her breathing was shallow and forced. Philip studied her symptoms, his mind racing to find a cause for her sudden collapse. I think it's poison, he whispered. Ian's expression darkened, his mind spinning as he tried to connect the dots. She's a divine apostle, Ian muttered. Dark magic shouldn't be able to touch her.